Hello guys and welcome back. It's me, Darren Taylor, and today we're actually going to be fucking cooking something instead of these 3 videos on equipment and updates and introduction. Now we're going to actually cook something. Now what we're going to cook today is just something very, very simple. It's an Italian dish. It's an antipasto, which means it's an appetizer, it's a starter. It's before your main meal. So we're going to be cooking bruschettas, and bruschettas is basically toasted bread with a range of toppings, anything from tomato and basil to parmesan cheese to shallots and garlic. There's many different things you can use. However, we're going to keep it simple. We're going to do one with cherry tomatoes and onion. We're going to do one with tomato and basil, and we're going to do just a very simple one with parmesan cheese, and that's it. So first thing we're going to do is we've got our stove on, it's starting to heat up. The bread we're going to use for this is going to be baguette bread. Now this is just French baguette bread. And the reason I'm going to use this is just because it's a nice simple bread. You can buy it in all your superstores, supermarkets, Asda, Tesco, Sainsbury's, so you're not going to find it hard to find it. So we're going to cut it at an angle, and the reason we're cutting it at an angle is because you get this little peak on the side which just looks a little bit more attractive than just having a fucking circle. So we're going to do 3 bruschettas, so we'll cut 3 at an angle, and don't be too tight-fisted, it gives them quite a bit of chunk. You don't want your being too tight-fisted. Now when you put them in, give them a generous heat. If the heat is too low, you're just going to end up turning stale. If it's too high, they're just going to burn. So you want them to be a generous heat, not too high, not too low, right in the middle. If you put oil in at the start, what's going to happen is the bread's going to soak up the oil and it's going to be greasy. So the best thing to do is to put a little touch of olive oil on at the very, very end, and that's just going to give it that nice fruity taste. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to prep the rest of our ingredients. Now since these can take a little bit of time to cook, it gives you a little bit of time to actually prep what you're going to put on it, so don't really worry about waiting for them there. So the first thing we're going to cut is an onion, top it, we're going to leave the root on, cut through it. Now we're not going to need that much. For one bruschetta we can give it a little bit of leeway. Peel the skin. Side. Now we're not going to need that much, so we can slice them or we can dice them. So I'm just going to cut a little bit off. That should be enough. And we're just going to do and that's going to be our onions. We're going to have a tomato. We're going to dice our tomato. Where for the cherry tomatoes we're going to slice them. It's going to look that little bit more attractive. So we don't really need much, just a few. That's it, probably that would do. However, we'll do one more just to be safe. And all this is doing is keeping work for yourself while your bread's cooking, instead of sitting about waiting. You're giving yourself some work to do, so you're not having to sit about and get bored. Now that's going to be enough. So I've just got our diced tomatoes, and we're going to do our sliced ones. Now the best way to slice these is to find where it came off the stem and just cut that off, which means you're going to get the nice quality bit of the tomato instead of getting the shitty bit. Now if you put too much weight on it, it's going to squirt out like that, and you're going to have this mess along. If your knife's sharp enough, you should be able to cut through it nicely. Let that happen. So that's telling me that the knife is a little bit blunt. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use my vegetable prep knife. Since it's smaller, the weight of that is going to be way too much for that tomato. So a smaller prep knife, which should just cut nice and clean through without wasting too much. dish to look as attractive as possible. And just keep an eye on your bread, just make sure that it's not burning. You should be able to feel when your bread is ready. And if you want that extra golden colour, you know, feel free to leave it in for that bit longer. However, it doesn't really make much of a difference. So there's our normal tomatoes. We have our basil here, we can just put that on right at the end, and we've got our parmesan cheese. So that is our ingredients pretty much prepped. However, we're going to do our onions, we're actually going to fry them off a little bit. We've got plenty of time to do this. You can see the bread is starting to crust, however, it's not getting any colour. So we're going to get just a small pan, it's a small amount of onions, it's not going to need that much. And we're going to put this on at quite a high heat. Quite a generous heat. We're going to put it on, well, this is on 4, this is going to be on 5. And the reason I'm doing this is because onions can be cooked quickly if you need them to. You can cook them slow, it's a waste of time. Just cook them nice and fast. So, little touch of extra virgin olive oil. Now the reason I am using extra virgin olive oil as to normal olive oil, extra virgin oil has lower acidity. It's more healthy. Olive oil is healthy in itself. Extra virgin has lower acidity. It's going to be a lot more healthier for you. It can be used to cook pretty much anything. Extra virgin is a tiny bit more heat tolerant than normal olive oil. So we've got our oil in the pan for our onions. We're just going to leave that to heat up. And we shouldn't be long until our bruschettas will be ready to turn. So best to clean as you go. The way to work a good kitchen is to make sure that your workspace is clean as you go. Because the last thing you want is at the end of it to have a massive pile of shit to clean up. So if you've got everything just nice and ready, then you know, it saves time. It saves time later on. It makes your life a whole lot easier. Our oil's just about ready. Right. So now our oil should be just about hot enough for our onions. So we're just going to plunk these in. And just give them a tiny stir. And what we don't want to do is cook them so much that they caramelise. That's a lot of places in restaurants make a mistake. I went in, had something with onions or shallots, and they've just caramelised it. Once they turn soft, then they're ready. That's when you know that they're going to be ready. And you don't want them to caramelise and turn all brown. They should still retain a little bit of colour, and they should become a little bit see-through as well. So our bruschettas are starting to pick up a little bit of a hardness at the bottom now. Now we can turn them. Both sides, as you can see, that one's got quite a little bit of colour, and that one's got very little. Now the colour to me is not that important. As long as the bread is warm and it has a crust on the bottom. As long as it's got that crust, then you know it's going to be fine enough. So always work your onions. Always treat your food like risotto. Keep working it. Otherwise, if you leave it, it's just going to spoil. We're going to fry them off. We're almost ready to do the final touches. And what you'll find with bruschettas is the first side will take longer than the second, especially if you're just putting the stove on. Once the heat gets into that pan, it won't take long before this side starts to get some colour and it starts to crust as well. If you can hear, our onions are starting to get all the heat into them. What you want to do is just take a little touch of salt to season. Just a little touch of pepper. And just to work that salt in, which is just going to bring out that flavour even more. Now what's going to be quite nice to have is you're going to have these onions that are filled with heat. They've got really good flavour. You're going to have these cold tomatoes as well, which is just going to lift the whole thing. I've always found that with cooking, so having something hot and something cold, especially on a dessert, just makes it a whole lot easier. So our onions are starting to cook quite nicely now. And the best way to try is see if they're soft. It's just a taste. I've still retained quite a bit of bite. I'm not quite ready yet. A couple of minutes. I'll be ready. So bruschettas are almost ready. The crust is just about there. Just want still a little bit soft. Once these onions are done, these are going to be ready just to decorate and send out if we're in a restaurant rather than at home. Just remember, you can cook your onions slower. However, I just like to, bang it in generous heat. It saves some time, especially if you're in a work kitchen and you're trying to get everything done. Be generous. Don't be scared to just turn up that heat. As long as you keep everything under control, you're not going to fuck anything. Now, the onions are ready now. So we can turn the stove off. I'm just going to leave them there just to rest while these are ready. So that's just bruschettas actually ready to decorate now. I'm just going to take them over here. Take this off the heat. Safety first. So we always learn the first day of working in a kitchen is your safety is first. So now we've got our 3 bruschettas on the plate, ready to decorate. Now we're going to use this. This is the extra virgin olive oil, which I did mention earlier. Now if you buy it, it's got a big gaping hole like this. As soon as you pour that over there, it's going to drip everywhere. So what I do is to get your thumb, like this, and just create a small hole that you can control how much comes out. And all you want is just a little dribble. Like so. And all that's going to do is it's going to give it a nice fruitiness. All the oil I've got is Napoleon, extra virgin olive oil, great for dressings. It's got a nice fruity taste to it as well. So now our first one we're going to do is obviously going to be our onions and our tomatoes. I'm just going to use this. So we've got our onions. Just get that right back. Fall off on the side, don't be careful. Just get your fucking hands in. Pull them out. As long as your plate's clean when you put them out. If it's in a restaurant, then who actually cares? Just got onions on. Tomato. And don't be afraid to get right in there with your detail. Don't be afraid to actually touch food. There's a lot of chefs I've met that are actually afraid to touch the food. The next we're going to do is just tomato and basil. And I'm going to actually layer them like so. So we've got our 3 tomatoes, and we're just going to get a nice little bit of basil on the top. Like so. Place that like that. And last what we're going to do is just, in fact I'm going to put a little bit of tomato in this as well actually. Tomato and parmesan. So I've got 3 different tomato based bruschettas, which I think are actually going to be quite nice. And just a sprinkle of parmesan with them. Just get a little bit of kitchen roll. Feel free just to shift them over while you clean. And the last thing you want to give a customer is a plate that's covered in fucking oil and parmesan and tomato, and make it presentable. You want it to look professional. Like so. So that there is our 3 bruschettas. Our tomato with our onion, our tomato with our basil, and our tomato with our parmesan cheese. So guys, very, very, very simple. Like I said, it doesn't take a lot. Bread, tomato. You can top them with anything else, that you like. This is as simple as it gets. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Feel free to put your suggestions, your comments, your likes, and any subscriptions, and anything else is also very much appreciated. Hope you enjoy this video. I'm Darren Taylor, and I'll see you next time with something probably more interesting.